Welcome. This is the panel on involving communities in the growth of pickleball. Oh, he took my seat. That's what it is. Okay. We've got some wonderful people here today, different aspects of community and how they define it. And we're all about growing communities, getting pickleball into places that need it. My name's Elena Saris. I'm the founder of the Recreational Pickleball Players Association, the RPPA. I believe that there's no pros without parks. And I started a newsletter for recreational players. And if you want to hear my philosophy, it was a friend of mine that said to me, "Oh, this is for the rest of us." And I said, no, this is for the most of us. So I'm very big on communities in pickleball, and I'm really excited to hear what our panelists have to say. What we're going to do is we're going to let them all introduce each other. We're going to ask some questions about how they feel about community, what it means to them, what's working in communities, what mistakes have been made, and hopefully we'll have a lot of time for questions and answers, so just enjoy. Why don't we go left to right here and just say, I'm going to give you my mic for now. We want to start with ladies. Oh, Emily. Okay.
Wow.
All right.
Wow. Surprise. Cool. Hi, I'm Emily Burnett, and I'm a writer, and I've written one book about money. It has nothing to do with pickleball, but actually it has a lot to do with pickleball. I care a lot about getting people off the sidelines, and I've spent the last year and a half traveling basically full time. I call it my midlife gap year. And I've been figuring out studying communities and learning how to immerse myself in communities and make friends where I am traveling. And pickleball has become a really big part of that. I have a lot of thoughts about what is going well and what isn't as I have gotten into pickleball all over the U.S. And I'll stop there.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm Chuck Vietmeier from Gamma Sports. I've been with the company 36 years, and we're primarily a tennis company. 10 years ago, we got into pickleball, and from that point on, it was just a go to get everybody involved. In the beginning, a lot of people in our area didn't even know what it was, so we kind of pushed ourselves out through our community in Pittsburgh, where we're based, and it's been a wild ride, and it's done very well for us so far.
Hey everyone, I'm Alex Greer. I started a company called Funky Pickle. Started that around the beginning of the pandemic. It's an event company. We produce community-oriented pickleball events that are more focused on the rec player, more focused on having fun. Just quick backstory, I've been doing events for like 15 years. I left New York during the pandemic, and when I was kind of losing my mind, trying to figure out what to do with my life because I couldn't do events, I found pickleball, and I fell in love with pickleball. And the thing that really struck me about it was the deep community vibe of the whole thing. It felt like this crazy social experiment, and people of all ages, all genders, like everyone playing together, and it was so fascinating to me. And then I went to a pickleball event, and it was a tournament at like a local rec center, and it was super stiff, and everyone was really intense, and no one was really communicating or talking, and it was not the open play that I had been going to every single day. And I was just so struck by the fact that this sport that was kind of really celebrating everything that makes sport so special, that brings people together, the events were kind of pulling people apart. And I thought there's a different way to do this. And so I kind of put my event brain around it, and we do an event where we have a brass band that marches around the courts and comedians doing live commentary on matches, food trucks and a bar, and we raise money for different nonprofits when we do these events. And it's just about bringing people together and having a lot of fun and celebrating what makes this sport so special. So that's Funky Pickle. I'm Alex, and I'm looking forward to talking on this panel with everyone.
Thank you, Alex. My name is Rick Witsken. I'm the co-founder of the National Pickball League. I'm also a Champions Pro player, and just as important to me is growing my love for pickleball in my community. My hometown is Zionsville, Indiana, and honestly more just the north and northwest side of Indianapolis. I coach a middle school pickleball club team, and I've invested in a couple local facilities in my area, and I've seen kind of the good and the bad, and I feel very blessed that the sport's given me so much. I kind of jumped into this sport real early in our community 12 years ago. So a lot of people look to me for guidance, at least in the state of Indiana. But I'm happy to be here and happy to answer questions and give more insight of everything I've experienced.
This guy next to me is a pickleball OG. So All right, so my name is Good Crazy Drew. I am the founder of the Pickleball House, and that is a pop-up pickleball and networking experience that we bring to major events in sports and entertainment. I also do business development with Pickle, which is the portable pickleball surfaces that you guys see here. So about half the courts, the 2 championships courts here as well. I come from college baseball, so I played a few years college baseball in San Diego and came across pickleball because I can't golf for shit and wanted to play in a golf networking experience or networking sport. So experience comes from a background in international sports, so working around the Olympics, NBA All-Star, Super Bowl, around these major events, doing marketing and entertainment. And so now bringing that experience to, like Alex said, bringing people together through the sport. There's nothing else like it. So I know Elena will touch on that, and we'll get into the rest of the panel. But thank you guys for being here and listening.
Thanks. So the one thing about when we talk about communities in pickleball is everyone has a different idea of what that means and how that looks. And for me, it was the typical got it during COVID and then, went up and I'm like, I just put my paddle in this thing and people will play with me. This is so cool, right? And that's a normal community. But my background, I am a criminal defense lawyer for 30 years. And I want to talk about one quick crazy community. I got a letter from one of my former clients who said, oh my God, that because we've been corresponding, that pickleball thing, it's in prison now. And that's a community. And one of the people behind, a couple of the people behind that are founding it, it's because of the social aspect and helping them with reentry. So I want to talk about the diversity, not the diversity of the types of community, your experiences with them, and how you define it, like what it means to you. So we'll start and we'll go back. Or anyone if got a point in the middle, just let us know. But we'll start with you. So
I think the diversity that hits on which no other sport can really touch right now is the age gap. So, I've seen 4-year-old players play, and I've seen 96-year-old players play. So maybe up to 100, but I haven't seen it yet. But just the level of diversity that this sport offers is like no other. So bringing people together through that, athletes of all kinds, people of all kinds, the adaptivity, so people with accessibility, being people with disabilities are able to play this sport. So I think that's where the diversity comes in. And there's no other sport like it that pickleball can provide as a sport. So,
diversity can mean so many things, and I know that my participation in my community started out where I was at a fall festival with a portable court. How easy is it to recreate the sport of pickleball wherever we go, right? So kind of started out with that. Then there was a nice long caravan and it really in floats and an incredible parade. Got into that with a portable net, and I was hitting as we were walking along the parade, which then led me to get into with my schools and starting club pickleball. I've got 3 teenagers, and trust me, 6-7 years ago, I tell them about this sport, and they literally shrug their shoulders and say, "Dad, what are you doing? You're an idiot." Well, they wouldn't say that, but I felt like it. And now, like, Dad, will you go out to the pickleball courts with me? Will you go in our community? Will you go to Mulberry Fields where we have 70 high school kids, and now we got a college? So I started this summer a free high school participation because I'm really connected to the public school system of Zionsville, and so they allow me to kind of start some free things on the courts. I tape the courts, and we have now a large high school and a big look, what do college kids do besides get in trouble when they're in the summer? Like, they come back and have a lot of brainstorming on what activity they can or can't do. So I was super happy to start that. I give paddles away to police officers in my community, firemen, and I even saw that show Locked Up for 60 days, people that really didn't have any charge. But when I'm watching that show, I'm like, that is amazing to get pickleball into that arena where it could really change their whole evolution, their course of their life there in jail. So
playing with people who were mortal enemies on the outside. It is amazing.
It is. And so the community involvement, I'll get into a little more, but that's what I see. The diversity is in so many different walks of life.
So I think to me what is so fascinating about this is we're talking about the diversity of applications of this game, and there's so many different directions you can go, so many different communities that you can take it to where it has value. I think for me, the thing that really struck me was this blew up during the pandemic, right? And that's when the sport really took hold. And it's been around since 1965, but it was suddenly in those couple of years where it took off. And I don't think that was a coincidence because, we all had time on our hands to play. I mean, that certainly accelerated things, but it was how this sport filled a really important void in all of our lives. We couldn't have our third places, that they went away, and we didn't have this opportunity to connect with people the way that we do as a society. It's like one of our core needs as people, right? And I think that is what this sport struck. It struck that chord where everyone can come together. When we all have the story of when we were first learning, and like Debbie, 72 years old, was smoking shots right past you, and you're like, what is happening to me right now? But that's the beauty of it, because it can bring together people of every walk of life all on one court. And then the nature of the sport and how close together everyone is, it's just a natural next step that you're communicating, you're talking. I love the fact that like we complement each other's shots even when we're playing. Like at its root, it just feels like a recreational game. And I think that's what's so beautiful about it. And so to me, when I was speaking earlier about the tournaments and the vibe of that, I look at pickleball as kind of having the sport of pickleball and the game of pickleball. Kind of like there's table tennis and there's ping pong, right? And they're both kind of the same thing, but they're played differently. And I think that is, to me, where like the diversity of application comes from, is like the fact that it's all about kind of your philosophical approach to how you want to play this game, and that's what's so cool about it.
Awesome. I feel like we should have paddles so we can like tap each other in between comments. Like, nice comment. So community to me means a place where you belong, and pickleball has a lot of that. I'd say, that is the great majority, is so much belonging. A couple of stories that communities, like micro communities, because we live in communities, but a community can be a couple people on a court who are now suddenly best friends because you're playing this game together. I met a guy on the courts at Bear Creek in Colorado Springs, and I said, so what's your pickleball story? That's what I do as a writer. I listen to stories, and most of my favorite stories are the sideline stories. They're not maybe the heroes on the court. So I asked this kid, John, who looked, he was a great player, and he said he'd had a cancer diagnosis, so he had to give up competitive tennis. And as he just kept talking, he said, I love it. I have my pickleball moms. And when he graduated from college, he invited his pickleball moms to his graduation party, and they invited him to their Cinco de Mayo parties. I was at a tournament last weekend that had an adaptive tournament within the tournament, and talked with a guy who lost both his legs as a result of a motorcycle accident below the knee, and so he's in a wheelchair now. And he had to learn to find new things to do because he couldn't do what he had done before. And he was showing up to the community courts, and nobody would play with him. And he didn't have a chip on his shoulder about that, but I've also been that person who's like, anybody want to play with me? But there's so much of it happening in communities across the U.S. I've been a beneficiary of that, and I try to kind of pay that forward. But ultimately, community is a place where we belong, and there's a lot of belonging in this sport.
Pittsburgh is all about community. Many probably have seen if you've ever watched any of the Steeler games and all this stuff. Oh, yeah. And the first 2/3 of my career has been all about tennis. We're a privately owned company, family owned, started out of the basement of the owner's house. And we always thought you got to win your own backyard. You got to go out to the community, you got to win your own backyard. So most of us who work for the sport, for Gamma, are well known in the tennis area around the city. In fact, we have some really nice tennis centers there. There have been a lot of prestigious tennis tournaments been played in Pittsburgh over the years. One went over 100 years not too long ago. But when we got into pickleball, we felt, okay, we need to do the same thing. So Pittsburgh is what they call open streets, which is during the summer they'll take one day and they'll close streets of particular neighborhoods, and vendors are allowed to come in and they set up their wares and do all this stuff. Well, we decided to do a pop-up pickleball type of event. So we did it, and it went really well. People were just never knew about the game. Some had heard about the game. Everybody loved playing the game. We were one of the few areas that we started blocking the streets because they do a lot of bikes, and we were causing problems because so many people wanted to play. But we did it the first time, and they came back, the city each time came back and asked us to come do it the other 3 times because it was so popular. It was so well received. So we started doing more of these things around the city where we would even just go to a plaza, one of the buildings right in the center of the city, and all of a sudden at lunchtime we're playing pickleball, and the crowd that we had gravitate to us. And the women that would come out and want to try it in their high heels, the attorneys, the bankers, and we're talking some competitive people that it didn't matter. They're breaking a heel off one shoe, they're wobbling, but they had a blast. But that to us, that just showed, okay, this works for us. So let's take it out around the community and get people introduced to the game. Of course, we're bringing all our paddles, but we found that it was let them know that it's so easy to get involved in this game just by simply walking by a court. Someone will ask you to play, or if you have a paddle, just put the paddle down. They'll embrace you, teach you how to play the game, and you'll have a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's great. So one of the reasons I founded the Recreational Pickleball Players Association was to get communities to give them an easier way to communicate, but also to have them communicate with other communities, because a lot of things are working. A lot of us have made mistakes trying to build communities, or we've seen things come up in our community that can be avoided with certain actions. And I wanted to have a place where we could do that with each other, oh, hey, how are challenge courts working in your parks, things like that. Or the one that we're really involved with, and I'm really happy to announce that we are just putting our paperwork for a nonprofit, trying to get more resources to stave off the closure of courts because of noise issues, and to turn more tennis courts into pickleball courts. But I want to do something like that right here, right now, with your communities. Tell us what you've been involved in terms of being a part of a community, creating a community, or just something you've heard of that's working, some mistakes you make that we can benefit from and not make ourselves. So we'll start at the end here with Chuck. And Chuck, keep that one mic really close because that one's a little bit less.
Okay, I have a 5-year history trying to get my own community involved in pickleball. And most of the time when I talk to the commissioners, they go, well, we get a few phone calls about it, we're not so sure. So I guess the first thing I thought was, I have to show them that there are a lot more people that are interested in this. So one of the first things that I did is I created a Facebook page. I live in a township just outside the city, about 20 minutes. And it was called the Mount Lebanon Facebook page, Pickleball Association page. And it took a little while, but then before you know it, I was inviting everyone, anyone you know that's interested, have them go on this page. We want to show the commissioners. So I got that started, and it grew probably to 400 or 500 people in the course of a year and a half. And by that time, I'd already done 2 visits to the commissioners. And one thing I learned, a mistake, is you don't tell them that they should do something. You suggest that they do something, and that seems to work a little bit better. And long story short, it took probably 5 visits, and then we had an advisory committee board to see if this is something they want to move to the top of the list. But after all this, we finally got them to put in 6 courts, and there isn't a day that go by that I see people on the street come up to me and go, when are you going to start to get us more courts? I go, well, we just got these, so let's enjoy these while we can, but we are working on other ones. And we have a really nice clay court tennis facility in our township. It's 15 courts, and sadly it's not as busy as it once was. We had tournaments there where we had the likes of Roscoe Tanner come play there, Vitas Gerolitis. It was a national collegiate event, and it was a clay court, and it was huge. But sadly, those courts aren't as busy. But the facility needs some influx of cash, okay, to keep it running at the high level that they want to keep it at. So that's the next phase, is to get some courts there. So I've started in getting others to help with this cause. It can't be just one person, and it shouldn't be. You should get as many people involved as you can, but you don't. And the other thing is, another mistake is, don't take the whole community to one commissioner's meeting. Take a few each time. They don't want to be bombarded. There are other issues and stuff like that. So you have to do this strategically as well as emotionally and really be involved in it. So word of that spread to other communities that I was doing this stuff. So I had a lot of phone calls for a lot of people how to do all this stuff. And I just think, and I love doing it because I love seeing new courts, and you can take over a room just by mentioning pickleball now. My wife, too, is an attorney, and I go to her functions, and someone asks about pickleball. Next thing you know, I got everybody around me telling about pickleball, and she's looking at me, you took over the party again. But I didn't. I mean, it just couldn't happen. It just couldn't help it. So many people are interested in the game, and they want to know what to do to get their community involved. That's all it's all about.
Yeah, that is a big point. Like, if they're talking about pickleball instead of true crime, then you know that we've made it as a community. Emily, go on.
Yeah, I'm working on combining pickleball and true crime, so
I'm your girl.
We'll see what comes out of that. Yeah, a couple things I have tried to do myself. Again, I've gotten into it in multiple communities across the U.S. and so I've created a guide. It's kind of my beta guide. It's a living thing called the Getting Into Pickleball, because there's a real big difference between how do you play pickleball and how do you adjust to this like culture and this world, but it's different on every single court, even within a community. It's crazy. And so helping people, especially that are in their like 30s and 40s, who don't like to be bad at things, that kept me from getting into it for a long time. And honestly, so I've created this guide, and then I put it out in a couple of Facebook groups that I'm a part of around the country. And the interest in that and drilling, if anyone wants to make a ton of money, just build something for drilling for beginners that they can do without any other person, because the response, as I've like offered getting into pickleball clinics and who wants to drill, people have been very interested in those. And these are the ones that are like the everybody else that Elena talked about. One thing that I see working really well in the community where I've been based this summer is a nonprofit association, Pikes Peak Pickleball Association, Triple PA. And they have done an incredible job of doing some of the programming that clubs do, where they have an agreement with the city. So it's a group of citizens that are doing what Chuck is single-handedly doing. And they actually raise a bunch of money, and they offer round-robin clinics, and they facilitate ladder play. It's a really cool thing that I haven't seen yet. They've advised something like 60 different communities around the country on what this can look like to take some of the load off Parks and Rec and also take advantage of the courts during the middle of the day when there's a lot of availability. It's a really cool system that I've talked with the president and the founders of, and I think it holds a lot of promise for other communities around the U.S.
That's a great one. Yeah.
I think that there's a couple things. Number one, listen to your community. Like, I think that a lot of times, especially in events, and that's what I know, you sort of make assumptions about what people want, and you can go out there and you can spend a lot of money and you can ram your head against the wall and give people a lot more than they ever asked for, and they will show you that they have no interest in all the things that they didn't ask for. But they will, really invest in the things that they love about an event, or really anything. I think it's just so important to actually, communicate and find out what people are looking for and how you can fill actual voids in a community, and what you can bring, what the value proposition is for people. I think another thing that's really important to me, and partly where I kind of feel like this is part of my mission moving forward with what I'm doing, inclusivity is a word that you hear it, community, you hear inclusivity nonstop. But as the sport grows so rapidly and there's so many more interests in this sport and everyone's pulling in different directions, inclusivity becomes more and more difficult. Like, there's not open plays at every court anymore. A lot of people are booking their own courts, they're doing their own thing. That is actually pulling apart some of the really important pieces of like what made pickleball what it is. This grew because we were all together, and you were playing with people that are learning for the first time, and you did it with a smile on your face. Now people are like, are you my level? I don't know if I want to get on a court with you. And I get that. I get that there's personally you need different things out of like your your playtime, your free time. But I think it's still important to find time to like give back to your community, find time for the people that are just being introduced to the game, and just welcome everyone together to play, because there's so much more value in the things that happen off the court and the communication and the connection that you create with the people, than just about, what you're doing on the court. And I think that that's the fabric of how you can bring more to the community at large and what you can do with pickleball.
Good point. I can think of two different scenarios, one good and one not good, that I've been involved with. I can tell you that I was kind of one of the four founding members of a not-for-profit club in Indianapolis, Zionsville, and it was a tennis club. And I come from tennis as well. I'm still tennis and pickleball, but the tennis perspective of those three partners of mine, plus the board that we built, were with all tennis people. So here we are, this $5 million facility in Zionsville, and I'm talking about let's get pickleball during the dead time of this club. What a great thing. Get more people healthy, get more people driven. Heck, sell more memberships to our not-for-profit facility. And those board meetings were not fun to go to. I cannot tell you, and being in the game for over 12 years, I've taken a lot of bullets, I'm sure you did too, when you really are open-minded about this awesome thing of pickleball. There's some very stiff, rigid people. We all know that. And so I ended up, I'm not there anymore. And my company was helping run that club, and we left that club. And now people that are open-minded to tennis and pickleball, I have great conversations with. People that are, into just tennis or pickleball, I'm fine with that too. But anyway, and it kind of, when I started the National Pickleball League with my co-founders Beth Bellamy and Michael Chen, it was filling a need. You're right. Listen to your community. What do you need? We were literally at these tournaments playing professionally for 14 and 16 hours, not making much money, loving the sport, but not having so much fun. It went from so much fun when you're playing a tournament, you're playing 6 hours and playing 5 matches. And no, we were making less money, spending more time, not getting to see the ocean. We're playing at Newport Beach, and it just was, we had to come up with an alternative. So that's what really drove. I was asked this morning on the panel, why did you start it? I'm like, okay, well, because there was a need. And 15 over players can play amazing pickleball as well as 20-year-olds. So, but then you get people like the owners here. We've got Columbus Hot Shots owner right here. The McKnights, they are incredible at growing it in Columbus. So once you get people to buy into what you're doing and you expand that to different cities around the country, you're just touching the lives of so many people. And whether it's 15 over or just any age, it could be really the young kids. But we've all seen that there are intrinsic benefits that we didn't perceive when we started these journeys of these activities and facilities and events that we created. So definitely, and you don't have to be successful with every one. I can tell you that there's times where I've given away some free paddles. I'm like, that person's never going to play pickleball. They just came for the free paddle. But so you got to go to a little better venue. And the tennis team that I've coached for 25 years, half these kids are now playing pickleball. The other half have been told by their parents or the tennis club that, hey, you shouldn't be playing pickleball. But now those parents, they don't look very smart, do they? Because this game will blow it away. So we're not going to do anything besides continue to grow, just find the right place and the right home and continue to diversify.
Thanks,
All right. So first of all, Chuck and Emily, I want to thank you guys for just being the leaders locally in your communities, because that's so important. And I want to point out one of the case studies that I have from just community-wise is Miami. So Miami is not a city that's on the map for pickleball, really. It's a very niche, Southern Florida. When people think of Florida pickleball, it's Naples, it's Boca, it's Boynton, it's all of those cities up northern Broward County. But Miami has a niche pickleball community that's led by, and I want to point her out, she's not here, but her name's Lily Azel, and she's a USA pickleball rep. But she is locally in the community, going to every single city council meeting, every town council meeting, gathering the community together to do just what Chuck was doing, is going to those meetings to really push for these parks and facility, because there's land and real estate is tricky in Miami. It's very expensive. There's no facility, there's barely any facilities, but those facilities that they do have for pickleball have been fought for by these leaders that are going to every meeting. They're leading the WhatsApp groups all over. There's a WhatsApp group of 2,000 people, of pickleball players in Miami. And that also has a spider web of advanced players, women's leagues. So I think what they're doing down there is, again, not a city that you would think of in the country, but one that's a very strong, close-knit. But the other thing that's very impressive about that is from a public parks perspective. I haven't gone to a public park anywhere in any other city where they have staff that's running the pickleball, and they are doing the clinics, they are running the open play, they are running the challenge court. They have a full-time staff at every single public park in Miami for pickleball, which came from tennis. They used to be tennis instructors running clinics there, running youth programs, but they are running the challenge courts, they are running the public courts, they are closing it up, they are putting the nets away, they are bringing out the paddles, the balls. And again, a city that you wouldn't think of and in Miami is running everything from a public perspective. They are very open to also accepting donations and working with nonprofits as well, running youth clinics, so working with their local boys and girls clubs. So that's a city that I've seen lead, but also wanted to point out just what Alex is doing as well in his community is you go to, I actually played with him firsthand in Margate, in going to his home courts and seeing people wearing the Funky Pickle shirts and seeing how strong of a brand that they have built there and that he's popped up. And he's actually, Miami is also a city on his map that he's had success in and brought people together and hosted awesome tournaments there. So I know that's a small case study, but one that I wanted to bring out of how strong and how close-knit that is and what they're building down there that I think should be replicated in, of course, every city that we can get to, or not every city we can get to because a lot of cities have pickleball, but just a good example down there.
That's excellent. I wish we had that. That's great. And that's one of the things when I was doing the association, I made sure that you can post events for free because I think that there's so many wonderful and amazing USA Pickleball ambassadors who are running these round robins when they live, and some of them are in places where it's just so hot you've got to rent something indoors, and it's coming out of their pocket because they're posting it on these apps and sites that were really not made for them. They were really made for other things. So it's like, no, just come and post it. And then we have a searchable calendar for the whole nation. I want people to know that we will post your nonprofit fundraiser on that, whether or not you're part of our group. We just want to get that out, which is next topic, because one of the things that I don't think people really consider that there's very few like sport days that can be fundraisers that the whole family can participate in, right? Where we're having a tennis tournament, but here we have, your 10-year-old kid and your grandma can come and spend the day for Alzheimer's disease, right? And the extra benefit of that is your 10-year-old is now learning that, hey, we need to give back. This is something that we're sort of like, it's the meta training that's happening while this is happening. And, to me, the only thing I think of I ever did with my family as a whole family was bowl. Everybody could play, but so I would like for you guys now, because we're at the 2:36 mark, talk if you have anything about nonprofits that just that, like what I was just sort of saying about how like there's a deeper level to that, but just tell us now like what it is you guys are doing. Give us what's on the horizon for Alex, Rick, and Emily, and everybody. What is on your next horizon? What are you working on? How can you help people with that? How can people help you? And what you'd like to see other people involved in. And then if we have time after everybody goes, we'll get to Q&A.
So the nonprofit side, I think one of the most important parts in the sport is the grassroots. So getting youth involved and giving them those opportunities to play. I know I keep going back to Miami, but that's just where a lot of my experience is in. And so we hosted an event during F1 weekend in Miami last year for the Pickleball House, and we had an event on the 19th floor of the JW Marriott Marquis, and we had it was on basketball floor. But we also had portable courts. So we had the pickleball courts there and had a networking event. But the next day, we brought the courts to a public park because they had a basketball court where they didn't have rims on the basketball court. So they had no rims. They had a basketball court that nobody used. and it was in a inner city area in Hialeah, so a suburb of Miami where they didn't have anything else with those with those basketball courts. We brought pickleball, and now those courts are used every single day with kids, with clinics. We've hosted 4 clinics there, and that was working with Udonis Haslam's foundation. So Udonis Haslam is one of the most famous, most tenured Miami Heat player for 20 years, and probably one of the most famous basketball players in Miami besides Dwayne Wade. So working with his foundation, and I think that's the most important part right now at the nonprofit level, is getting those inner city, less fortunate kids available and playing pickleball, introducing them to the sport.
And what about you? What's on your horizon specifically? Like what are you involved in next? What's your next?
Continuing to do those kind of projects, those kind of give back, and really having those pop-ups that we do that are more celebrity and athlete and executive focused, but the next day making sure that we have an impact component to that, where we're donating the courts. We donated paddles. We had 50 custom paddles made to give to those kids, and they thought it was Christmas Day. Getting those paddles and also getting them signed and doing pictures with Udonis Haslam. So that was just a community superstar that we brought together. So doing those kind of events and getting grassroots involved, court donations, because the biggest problem in every single city that we go to for pop-up events is courts. You can't have being able to do pop-up courts, but also donate those back to Boys and Girls Clubs, to YMCAs, to public parks, which is another thing to go through community-wise. Is we got clearance in a week from a public park to accept courts.
Wow.
Because of the demand and the interest for pickleball, and them wanting to get more courts and get kids playing. So give them an opportunity to stay off the streets and stay out of trouble and really pick up a sport that they could see future benefit from. Being able to, just like golf is a networking sport, being able to shake hands business-wise on a pickleball court is business deals is something that those kids could get introduced to early on. So
That's great. I actually learned to play on a basketball court. Go on, Rick.
So the reality is that the National Pickleball League is taking up a lot of my time, and we do have a component, which is a not-for-profit, that we like to share that interest for the 50-plus crowd and who they will donate to. You know, look, people that are professionals who they love this game and they like to give back and they're willing to give a free clinic or a free lesson. I know last year at our championships in Glendale, Arizona, we did a Pickle on Pink, and we had so many things donated by the players, certainly plenty donated by just vendors that wanted to be part of that. And obviously, you know, with the cancer and the breast cancer, we had 5 survivors play in our league that were giving testimonials on event championship weekend. And we raised, I think, over $30,000 just for breast cancer. Personally, I lost a brother to a brain tumor, and everything that I do, which is Witsken, rest in peace, and my last name, every day I spend honoring him, and then brain tumor survivors, and then those who lost their loved ones to brain tumor. So I have a paddle from Paddle Tech that they just came out right at 4th of July. That is money is being donated to 2 different projects, the American Brain Tumor Association and then also Wounded Warriors. My dad was in the military, so I'm involved in that as well. Obviously, it's got my name on it. There's a signature, Rick Witsken signature Paddle Tech paddle, TKOC. So I'm proud of that. But ultimately, the growth of pickleball is also going to be continued with an ease of access of cost points. So I run a tennis and pickleball program that goes to different facilities that need instruction, because it's one thing for people to have learned it during the pandemic and play with a family member, but to learn it the right way where they can really continue to enjoy it.
To keep score?
To keep score, exactly. I'm happy that we keep price points low, certainly in lesser affluent communities. And, look, these paddle companies, they want to help out. Like on my middle school team, they all got free paddles because I started the first Indiana pickleball team for middle schoolers. Now we have another school that has jumped on that wants to start, and hopefully in a year or two, we'll be like Maryland, who just had the official pickleball high school authorized. So, there's no shortage of ventures for any of us for what we want to choose to be involved in. But, I do think the price point of a not-for-profit is really important for us because the game's been so good to all of us. So I encourage you guys as well that are in the audience to really look at that and make sure it's accessible and affordable.
So on the nonprofit side, I have a lot of experience doing fundraising events. When I was living in New York prior to getting into this, I was doing music and comedy events to raise money for different nonprofits. I came up with a comedy game show. This was like my life. I was doing a lot of nonprofit fundraising and finding creative ways to do it. Now applying that to pickleball. So all of our events have a philanthropic partner. Drew spoke a lot about Miami. I can, fully testify to the growth of that community and just watching this. There were so many people there that wanted to play and had nowhere to play. And I worked with Shane Battier, I guess slightly less famous than, thank you. See, I forgot his name. I know Shane, though. Everyone knows Shane Battier. Shane, he is a nonprofit that is a scholarship fund. We worked with him, and we actually had to create 20 courts at the Biltmore Tennis Center in Miami because there wasn't a facility large enough for what we were doing. I'm bragging only because I was like the first to have a huge, large-scale pickleball tournament in Miami, but kind of by default. Our event in South Jersey, we raise money for a mobile mammography van that goes around to communities in need of, women in need of breast exams that wouldn't otherwise be able to afford them or get them, and we raise money for that. So, I think community and giving back are just linked, and it's something that I think adds so much value to whatever you're doing in a space. The reason I started to do nonprofit work to begin with was I know that there's so many people that have a desire to do that, but price points, like no one wants to go to a gala dinner because why do you want to spend $1,000 to sit next to a whole bunch of people that want to brag about whatever, or it's like stiff and the food's not great, and we don't have to do it that way. We have this amazing sport that applies to everyone, and we can get out there and have a lot of fun raising money for a cause and put a smile on people's face. It's like the sugar to the medicine. We want to give back, but we don't want to do it the way that people typically do it. So, I think this is an amazing vehicle for that. As far as what's next for me, for Funky Pickle, I've been doing these festival size events, and they're cumbersome and they're awesome. I mean, I had a lot of fun doing it, but I'm looking to find ways to get into more communities and do this in, with an event that's a little bit more dynamic, or an event that can be outsourced to some extent to communities that they can run. So I've been working on programming that's a little bit more feasible to host smaller events and in quicker timelines. That's what I'm looking to do is kind of continue to make this a lot more fun for people to do good.
And just a quick note on that, there's all these entertainment places that are so willing to help us with these things. And that's the other thing, if you're thinking about doing something, reach out to people because they want something to be able to do that all they have to do is provide a venue or something, and you do the work. So, yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah, it sounds like all of you are involved in a lot of good things, and I've just been an observer of good things. Another one I'll mention, I talked earlier about the nonprofit I've seen work so well in Colorado Springs is military adaptive court sports, and I was just talked with one of the guys that's involved with that in Colorado Springs, and it all started by seeing a need, and that was to help veterans be able to be engaged in life, and it started his first clinic I think was his parents and the gentleman I mentioned earlier, and it has grown into quite a program where people come down from Denver to participate. And the thing I love about that story and example is just that it did start small. It started by seeing a need for one person, and it's grown to help a lot more. As far as what's next for me, so as far as pickleball, sharing stories, sharing the evolution and kind of the heart of this sport, and doing my part to keep it from turning into real life Facebook on courts, is to write on the Pickleball Times. So that's a publication I run on Substack. And continuing, again, to solve for the people who are afraid to enter the sport, and they come and they might have a bad experience by like somebody who thinks they own that particular court in a community, and they don't, but they act like it. And so identifying ways to encourage those of us who enter and play this sport to communicate clearly, and like kind of the life lessons that I've learned, clear communication, apologizing, removing yourself from the situation if it's not fun. All of these things, enabling people to grow big, I call them confidence zones, not a comfort zone, because I think a lot of people they play pickleball, but they play with like one person or three people, and they always play at this court, this time. And for me, the magic of pickleball is 100% the people and the strangers that you meet and the conversations that you never expected to have. It's the most organic networking contact sport, if you want to call it that. And so figuring out ways I can be part of that in communities across America, because I'm in the position to be able to travel around the country and observe what's going well, and then kind of sharing that, aggregating what's going well, and as well as opportunities.
Thank you.
We did a little different thing. Many years ago, I played a lot of tennis with the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation as a sponsor to this tennis auction ball. And for years, they did a great job and raised hundreds of thousands of dollars in the Pittsburgh area. And one of the gentlemen who was involved in that, after that kind of went away, so he came up to us, he goes, "Chuck, I'm really involved now with the Parkinson's Foundation. And we found that Parkinson's and pickleball are connected in some way, and it's beneficial for both. So I'd like to start a tournament, and I know you were involved in cystic fibrosis. I want to kind of maybe not do the same thing, but I want to." So I went ahead and I'm renting a room in a convention center like this. I said, okay, that's kind of a big bite to start off with. He goes, but I really want to do well for them. So he invited me and a couple other people on this committee, and we got it all planned off. And he goes, well, we need a title sponsor too. So he goes, will Gamma do that? And I said, well, I'm sure, and we're probably going to need the nets and all this stuff, because we started with 26 courts. The first year we had 200 and some players. And it went really well. And after about 2 or 3 years, we got it up to about 300 or 400. He was it was a lot for him. He had done a lot of things, and he was a little older gentleman. So he asked, would you guys like to take it over? And we did. So this is the 8th year coming up. And last year we had 700 players, 40 courts, and the Parkinson Foundation benefited from that very well. So with all the talk of pickleball being an Olympic sport and all this stuff, the Special Olympics group reached out to us. Oh, wow. So at this year's tournament, we're going to do a little thing on the last day of the event for Special Olympics and kind of highlight it and see how much interest we have in that and all the organization around Pittsburgh. And that'll probably also involve the Miracle League baseball that they do for the special needs kids as well. So like Rick said, I could just open an email box that one morning and I got 20 more options of something to do. There's nothing and it's all good. We all like to help. We try to do as much as we can, whether it's people or donations, whatever it is, we try to help. So.
And do you have an event coming up you want to talk about at all, or?
Well, we have the Gamma Classic coming up the weekend of September 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th in Pittsburgh. This year it's going to be outdoors. The city built and redid the facility right outside our office, which is really nice. We walk out at lunchtime and play, and that's another thing that we've gotten involved with. More people are coming down now to our office and hanging out, even though we're supposed to be working. But it's all good, and so that we're looking forward to that.
So great. I have one more question for everybody, but I want to see if there's any questions from the audience before we do that. Okay, so starting here then, what I'd like to do for the last few minutes is I want to spend like 1 to 2 minutes. We've got about 8 minutes left, and I want to hear what has worked for you in reaching out to the community? Like, what was the one thing you did that, like, I think someone was talking about a happy hour earlier on a drop-by happy hour to learn how to play on another committee. What has worked for you in terms of bringing the community in, sort of making them partners with you, having them understand what you're doing, and is there one or two tips you can give people to say, like, an actionable thing? Well, this is where we started. We went to these people, or we held this event, something like that.
I think for us, it was just our ability to get other people involved. We reached out to some of the people that we've helped. Can you come out and help us, because there's somebody in need? And the fact that we could set up an event and just get it rolling for them, and everybody came in and had a good time, and it was successful just because of our expertise and going through it over the years. I mean,
so the ripple effect that
right.
it went.
It's been a total ripple effect in Pittsburgh. Every community is now looking at doing something, and it's just from the one.
And how did that start, though? I mean, there has to be a stone in the pond to get the ripple to begin with.
I think when we just did our first pop-up events,
that was it.
It just, people were, there's something new coming. I got to get involved. And then I think just by seeing it for the first time really helps.
I think that's really important, because they're not just reading about it or hearing about it, but they're seeing it right there.
One other quick thing. The first time I ever played pickleball, I was at a tennis tournament playing, and then they were playing pickleball. I just walked over to see what was going on, because I had heard about it. My son had played it in school, gym class, and they asked me to play. And, years I've walked by tennis courts and no one would ask me to play without knowing what level I was or whatever. Didn't matter. I said, I'd give it a try, and I did it.
People know what level I am, and they never ask me to play still.
I don't know that I have a lot to add to this question, but I will just say, if I've been able to do anything good in the sport thus far and hope to continue, it's that I look for the people who aren't belonging and try to include them, and I hope to be able to do that in a bigger way. Like to engage communities that aren't involved in pickleball because they're hesitant or nervous about it, to be able to help them feel comfortable. But even that just goes for like the one person. Or the other day I was walking by a court, and this family, a young adult daughter and parents were playing, and they had asked multiple people, do you want to play? And everybody said no. And I was just looking for a game, because the people I was there to meet were engaged in other games, and that made a difference to them. And I think that we all have that opportunity here to do that, to look for the person who's like lurking at the courts, who's like pretending like they're not trying to learn this sport, and to just give them that place to belong.
That's a huge ripple effect, right? That's going to get paid forward.
Yeah. For me, this whole thing started because, a need, right? I was out of business. I was at home. I was trying to fill something in my life, but I saw this opportunity to give back to the community. I think it was literally, for me, running around to local businesses, speaking this thing into existence, showing up to a court, putting a speaker on, playing some of my favorite New Orleans funk music, and everyone being like, oh, this feels like a party. I'm like, you wait, you'll see. You'll see what I'm going to have a brass band. People are like, what are you talking about? Like, you'll see. But like, you kind of just have to do that. You have to like speak it into existence. You have to find your ambassadors in the community to get, you build your family of people that are going to support this and find a way. And like, there's something kind of beautiful about being naive and like not knowing how this is going to go, because you can walk right into businesses and be like, please give me money. I'm going to do this crazy thing. And they're like, sure, you're way too confident. So, so like that's how it really started for me, was just kind of going for it. But you have to double down on your community. You have to get other people to believe it like you believe it, and then ask for help, because it really does take a village to do this thing, to do anything, you need the people to support you. So, I think that's important. You just got to go for it.
Excellent.
Obviously pickleball is a sport that kind of sells itself at this point, but I feel a little neglectful if I don't share my love with the people that are around me. And I literally was at a basketball facility with my kid, and I asked them, hey, can I bring in a pop-up pickleball court during the basketball event? Thinking they might think, oh, man, we don't want another sport in here. And they were okay with that. So literally, while the parents are, micromanaging their kid and yelling at their kid to do better, I was able to get them away from that toxic I'm hovering over my kid and come out and play pickleball. And that was a beautiful thing. I know, as I referenced earlier, when we were in Glendale, Arizona last year, we had the Pickle and Pink. We had a couple rollout courts out there. And I am probably needing to be on your staff because I like to be an entertainer and look like an idiot, right, Rick? And so I put on a shark mask. Yeah, you would agree, thank you. So I'll wear a mask to be goofy. As I told you, I've been in my town parade, literally while people are holding the portable nets with their arms, and I'm hitting the ball walking down the street. Hope to goodness I don't trip over somebody that's like literally lining the street for the parade, or our ball hit them, or whatever. But just kind of because we know people that want an activity will find this activity. You know it's in every cocktail conversation and every corporate event. Everybody's talking about it, but it's those people that you were talking about that like are a little scared because they think I'm not going to be good at this and I've already missed the curve, and just trying to draw them in somehow, some way with music, comedy, masks, whatever. Miami, South Beach, I'm sure you got your own ways to draw people in, but that's what I do. I try to look outside the box, and I feel neglectful if I don't try and bring in those that are around me, whether it's in the league that I'm playing in, or the tournament I'm playing in, or the school that I'm teaching at. I try to draw all those people in.
Yeah.
Thank you, David.
Go ahead.
I love NPL.
So I think one of the most important things here to get it going is to start it. There's a lot of people that are afraid to just invite people out or to start something. I go back to the baseball reference of if you build it, they will come. The field of dream, just building that out and starting it, being that person that says, okay, in 2 weeks, I'm going to have an event. I don't care how many people are showing up, because that's what people are afraid of is, oh, I don't know how many people are going to show up. There's going to be 3 other people. Who cares if it's just 3 people that show up? You never know who is going to show up. And then the other thing, too, is just going back to our first event was Super Bowl weekend in Phoenix. 2 weeks before Super Bowl weekend, I said, I need to throw an event. I don't care who shows up. We have 2 courts indoor at the Orchard in Scottsdale, and we ended up having athletes, agents. We had a couple brands there. We had a couple sponsors, and this was right down the street from Waste Management Open. But going back to starting it, every event is always looking for help, people to help out, volunteer. And I think going back to that, people here in these pickleball communities, we should, and I should start doing a lot more of this too, is what we started out in Phoenix is going straight to Grand Canyon University, their pickleball program. And so university students are hungry, they're looking to get out there, they're looking to network, but they also have a love for the game and interest. So they are people that are interested in helping out, interested in volunteering. So if anybody's looking to host an event in any city, look at how many college programs are out there now that have these clubs that are kids that are university students that are looking to get out there and help. They want to get their name out there because they're also going out there to look for sponsors and look for people to support their local clubs. So every event or every brand activation that comes to us or comes to, I know Alex as well, is even NPL, like every brand that wants to host a pickleball event at a mall or a pop-up, wherever, the number one question they have is who is going to activate this? Who is going to manage this? And I think the first thing people should think about is those, of course, local groups on Facebook, but also those university students that are interested in getting out in the community and growing the sport and also getting their name out there and their experience.
Excellent. Yes, we are done, and I just want to thank our panelists, everyone here. Really appreciate your help, and I guess the takeaway is, ask someone. Ask for what you need. Get people involved in your community.
Who needs a ball?